When American soldiers answer the call of duty in foreign conflicts, they bravely risk their safety, their freedom, and their lives, and not everyone meets a conclusive fate. Over 81,000 American service members remain unaccounted for today, including unrecovered prisoners of war and those who were missing in action and never found. Of those still unaccounted for today, 4,100 are from Texas. But thanks to the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA, nearly 200 lost Texan soldiers have been identified and brought home. Data from conflicts predating the Vietnam War is limited, especially since tracking often was not done by state. But even so, mathematical calculations can provide an estimate on the number of Texan soldiers unaccounted for in those earlier wars. 5% of Americans who served in World War I were from Texas. This means that of the 4,400 American POWs and MIAs in World War I, approximately 220 were Texan. Then, among the Americans who served in World War II, 7% were from Texas. This means that of the 72,600 American POWs and MIAs in World War II, approximately 5,082 were Texan. One of these Texas heroes was 2nd Lieutenant Robert Walls from Houston, Texas. Walls served in World War II as an Air Force bombardier. He was in the 529th Bomber Squadron, belonging to the 380th Bomber Group. On March 8, 1944, Walls was on a bombing mission against Japan's Dagwa airfield in Papua New Guinea. His B-24 was shot down in the South Pacific Ocean by enemy fire, after which he was declared missing in action. It wasn't until 1946 that the military declared Robert Walls dead. For his bravery and his sacrifice, Walls was awarded an Air Medal and a Purple Heart. In the Korean War, about 7,600 American soldiers were unaccounted for. Once again, using Texas's 7% contribution in World War II, mathematical estimates find that the Korean War had approximately 532 Texas POWs and MIAs. One of them was Corporal Billy Charles Driver from Dallas, Texas. He was only 18 years old when he and his unit engaged in combat against North Korean forces near the village of Kumboa on September 5, 1950. Several sets of remains were recovered from the area that October, but many could not be identified. Because he was not found, Driver was declared missing. It was only in 2019 that scientists from the DPAA identified the unknown remains as those of Billy Charles Driver. After more than half a century without closure, Driver was finally accounted for, making it possible to lay him to rest as deserved, a proper burial with a name to his body. Driver's story highlights the importance of the work done by the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. Precisely 34 Texan soldiers who served in the Vietnam War remain unaccounted for. This is a figure verified by the DPAA. It is important to note that the Vietnam War is particularly infamous for the high numbers and the harrowing accounts of American prisoners of war. Among the most famous of Texas POWs in Vietnam was James Nicholas Rowe, born in McAllen, Texas. Rowe was a Special Forces officer captured by the Viet Cong on October 23, 1963. He endured 5 years of imprisonment, trapped in a tiny bamboo cage. Rowe fooled his captors into believing he was an engineer, which prevented them from pressing him on the valuable information he held. However, the Viet Cong eventually acquired a list of high-value American POWs, which included Rowe's name and identified him as an intelligence officer. Enraged, the Viet Cong dragged Rowe into the depths of the jungle to execute him, but got distracted by a flight of American helicopters. Rowe took the opportunity to overpower his guard, escape, and flag down an American helicopter, which picked him up and flew him to freedom. James Rowe was not only clever, but a survivor through and through. And in 1981, using his experiences as a POW, he designed the famous American SEER course. Passing SEER, which stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape, is now required in order to join the United States Army Special Forces. Modern conflicts have seen fewer and fewer American soldiers unaccounted for, thanks to improvements in tracking and identification technology. For instance, there are no Texas soldiers unaccounted for from the War on Terror. Even though accountability is ever improving, we should never forget the sacrifices made by those unaccounted for in earlier wars. While the fates of 4,100 Texans remain unknown, they will always be remembered for courageously answering the call to serve our nation. This concludes our lesson on Texas POWs and MIAs. I wish you continued success in your journey through the Texas Learning Academy lessons. Until next time, thank you for watching.